Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tung. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. All right, ladies and gents, welcome back to another episode of Blue Grit Radio. This is your host, Eric, and it is with distinct honor and privilege that I bring to you a man that is very early on and impactful in my career. Depending on when this airs, you may have recently heard me interview Mr. Bill Blowers, who was my first training officer, but really a man that spent probably way too much time with me and my classmates, was my TAC instructor. So that was my academy instructor at the Basic Law Enforcement Academy, as I was a brand new baby cop just trying to learn all the things. But we have today Ken Henson. Ken, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, no problem. I half expected a clap background, yay kind of thing, but you didn't. Come on,
You
man.
know, we like to keep it pretty straightforward here on Blue Grit Radio.
Yes, sir.
But you want some laugh track to kind
Yeah,
of
that'd have been dope.
give you a little bit more confidence, maybe like the studio laughter or something.
That'd have been so cool.
I like the early '90s, laugh track, late '80s,
Oh
where
yeah,
it's just really over the top, right? It
right.
sounds like three different laughs, right?
Exactly. You can tell this is a different laugh track than the last one for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, man, I got so many stories that pop in my mind, but if you can start off by a little bit of an introduction about yourself, and share with the listeners about your calling to service, if you want to talk about your military career, and then what brought you to law enforcement.
Oh yeah, yeah. Pretty simple. I am a third generational military member. My grandfather was in the military. My mother and father were both in the military, and then me and my brother joined the military. And now my son is in the military. My oldest son's in the military.
Nice.
So that started me down my path of law enforcement. Uh, I started in the army as a military policeman, so I did that for 7.5 years. Worked my behind off, refused to go to sick call, and end up getting a medical discharge because of my shins. I ran way too much. I had stretch fractures in both my
Mm,
shins. In fact, I broke my leg playing unit tackle football.
dang.
Yeah, I broke my leg through one of the stretch fractures, and from that point on, I could never really get back to what I was supposed to. I could max a PT test, but I just couldn't. It was very painful. So I got out the military right up here in Washington State, and then I joined the jail. Worked in the jail down in a county south of where we are now.
Yeah.
Did that. Couldn't stand that. That was just too boring.
How long did you do that for?
I did that for I think it was 15 months,
Okay.
and I didn't like. The people were great, not the people in jail, but the people I worked with were great. But
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. I got bored out of my mind. I even told people at 6 months in, I was like, "There's no way I'm gonna be able to do this. I'm gonna start applying." So
Yeah.
actually, I applied at State Patrol. I signed at KPD, and they just called me 2 weeks before State Patrol called me. So I joined KPD, did the academy, did that stuff. Then transferred to another organization, and here I am today.
Yeah. And so for those listening that hear KPD, yes, he is talking about the Kent PD that I work for. And that was definitely probably just as intimidating, working under one patch and having everyone know your TAC instructor, being like the eyes and ears, kind of, even though you work for a different department, but all roads lead to Kent, right? And so I
That's
feel like there
true.
was almost this added layer of intimidation because it's like, hey, he works for a different department, but he's still going to offer all the eyes and ears and kind of, word getting back if you mess up. You have that direct connect. But real quick, what do you think were the most helpful things as you became a military police officer, as it translated into your career? And then if there's anything you can think of from your quick CO experience as well, because we recognize those are a lot of paths that help people get into the law enforcement career.
Oh, that's a great question. I can tell you right now, when I was in the military, I thought I knew about police work. It wasn't even close.
Mm,
It wasn't. I mean, as military policemen, you're kind of super restricted on what it is you can do and who you can do it to. So, um, the one thing that I did carry over was the discipline piece, the esprit de corps, camaraderie piece, that I took with me everywhere I went. The team building, all of that stuff just transferred perfectly to what we're going through. And everybody who's ever been part of a shift or a crew, whatever you want to call it, like day shift or swing shift or whatever it is, you know that that becomes your second family.
yeah.
And it was the same way being in a unit or in our platoon. Our platoon was second family. So it's I took that piece away from the military, um, having self-discipline to not get in trouble and to do the right thing when no one else is looking. Those types of things I
Hmm.
took with me. And actually, that's kind of just to the point you were making. That's part of what I tried to instill when I trained, especially when I was at the academy. Is you guys need to count on each other. You can't do this by yourself.
Yeah. Since we're talking about academy, I know that my class was particularly different for you and the other TAC instructors. What do you recall off the cuff about my class?
First thing I remember is where you guys were located. We were
Hmm.
actually in a separate building that's never seen before. Everybody's in the same building. They actually moved us across the breezeway to a separate building where there was no
Yeah.
admin, there was no other TAC officers. The only reason a TAC officer would come to that building would be to teach your class.
Hmm.
So that was to me was the most honestly most memorable thing is I had carte blanche authority to do, say, walk, look, talk anywhere I wanted to because there was no admin there. The second thing is with that is you guys didn't see a bunch of other classes, like
Right.
even walking down the hallways. So you guys are pretty much were, encapsulated into that one classroom, and you guys became honestly the most tight knit academy class that I've ever seen. And I've taught. Should I started
Interesting.
when it was class 5,595, and then when I
Hmm.
left it, we were at 650, I think. I think 650.
Yeah. Mine was 616, and I think currently it's like 865, 867, something like
Hmm.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, so it just keeps chugging on. Yeah, we were above the lunchroom. I think, from my memory, tell me if this is correct, is because of the volume of classes. There were
Yep.
just simply so many people. Everyone was hiring 2007, 2008. Um, Everyone needed a lot of cops. Not like today, but that was the first taste of that, I guess, for people that have been in the industry for a little while. Is trying to hire all these cops. Yeah, it's interesting. The tight knitness I remember, but I was just messaging with someone from the class that I hadn't been in contact with, but connected through social media again. Um, I was trying to suppose how many people of the class was it, roughly 30ish in each class.
Like
Uh,
35 ish. Yeah, between 30 and 35.
okay,
Yep.
and I'm trying to think of how many are still cops, and if pressed, I think it'd probably be like 10 or 11. I don't know for sure though.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm gonna tell you the weirdest thing is now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, there's a bunch of people that's not in police work anymore. I
mhm.
just the the things I remember most is how some of the nicknames that came up, some of the impressions of you guys would do of each other that would come up.
And of
Um,
you later on.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You guys waited till the right time to do it. And again, I had the way you guys came together was every TAC officer was saying the exact same thing. If we could do that with all the classes where they're isolated and they just count on each other, we would do that. But I
Mm,
just remember things like uh, male Johnson and female Johnson and
mm-hmm.
just things of that nature. That was to me like I knew that I was doing it the right way, the way you guys came together.
Yeah, man, it was a different culture back then, and I think that there's really some aspects that are very beneficial, um, to how it was. But at the same time, I think when the outside listener hears that you were able to see and do what you wanted, um, I would say, hey, like, limit your imagination, because I remember specifically you were very intentional to limit the swearing as much as you could. And I know that was brought on not even the current generation of tax, but maybe a generation or two kind of got upset because the state's like, hey, they're trying to tell us not to swear. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. If you're out in public and you're on body cam, or whether or not you have body cam, the expectation is you should be able to hold yourself together and address or curtail your speech. And you're supposed to be a professional. But I remember specifically all the time you would say, hey, my inclination from my military days and from my early in my career is to swear. However, I like to use the word frickin' because it doesn't tend to offend people. And you didn't use it every other line, but you would literally just be given a story and you're like, hey, I was so freaking mad. And it was very professional, right? You're just seeing, like, you're just trying to illustrate the extent of how mad you are in your storytelling. And I think anyone that knows you would probably say your storytelling is probably second to none as far as telling the stories about being on the mean streets of Kent, or, like continuing on your career. But like truly, like we talked a little bit coming onto this, but your stories are some of the best, not just for effect, but I mean, yeah, for effect. Like, it really drives the point home. Like, you taught me in my class so much about taking care of yourself, like the simple things that I think we're kind of early on as far as timing. Now we're talking about a lot more wellness. It's a lot of what this is about. But you're talking about taking care of yourself and telling this story about working graveyard where, your access to food is almost all fast food and convenience stores. And I won't even try to do the imitation because I won't do it justice, but you're imitating walking through your house and walking by the bathroom mirror and not recognizing yourself and shrieking for like seeing your out of shape body how that was like this self check. You're like, what happened to me? Like, who is this dude? But just in such this way that really drove the point home.
I compared myself to Fat Elvis at that point. I was like, yeah, that's Fat Elvis right there. That's not what I remember, but 100% right. That's having and again, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but having a story to relate to what it is that you're teaching kind of puts in people's heads an image that they can reflect back on. Just like you remember that, and there's a lot of people that remember that because I use that story quite a bit on working out and eating right, and shit, it saves you money if you just bring your own lunch, right?
Yeah, for sure. That story, and it was in this way that you definitely were very for absent of military career. Like, I viewed how you conduct yourself as a TAC as being very drill instructor ish. Like, I think you set really high firm expectations, but we were able to work and get there. You weren't chummy with us until really at the end, right? As far as like getting comfortable, like we definitely were not comfortable around you. We appreciated and respected the crap out of you in the lessons you taught and the short stories you shared. But in that, even though you maintained this distance, I think, or at least as I would describe it, you let us in with your personal anecdote, right? Because here young cops they're just itching to have stories of their own. But another one that was more personal was, you just sharing, getting so close with your patrol buddy, our friend Mark. You tell stories about all the hijinks and the funny things you do together, but even to share with us that you got called out by your wife on how much time you're spending with him on and off duty. And right, so that lesson was living outside the blue world and not forgetting your obligations as a family man, as a spouse. And of course, right, like I was unmarried at the time, single dude, just freewheeling. But what an important story for me to hear early on, to say, hey, it's going to be really hard to not spend all your time with your buddies that get you and get the calls and the weird stuff and the scary stuff and the just creepy stuff that you see. However, you do have this other life and you need to make sure to invest in it.
Right. I think honestly, but for specifically my wife, I probably would have. I wouldn't be where I am today. There's no two ways about it. One of the stories I like to tell is when you first start out, you come home and you tell your wife all these great stories. It could be, hey, we went to this barking dog and the dog ran away, and you're making it sound like it was a scene from your famous John Wick movie.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, and as you get further along into the profession, you quit sharing those stories with her or with your family. And when you get around your friends again or some other cops, then you're telling these all these stories, and your spouse is kind of looking at you like fool. I've never heard that story before, and I've been with you for X amount of years. And those were the type of things that I would tell her. I was like, because I don't want you to get, and she would. I didn't want her to get worried
Mm-hmm.
about me going to work and having to fight people and having to pull my gun and being scared and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I I say that more of a defensive, but I probably should have been telling her. And she always asks, she'll see something on TV and she says, "You wear your vest, right?" I was like, "Every single day." I said, "It's not even a question about wearing your vest. I wear my vest every day. We are required to wear a vest every day. And even if I wasn't required, I would still wear it. Shoot. Matter of fact, at the academy, I
Mm-hmm.
wore my belt and I wore my vest every single day, every day, because kind of like you said, I want to present that example for my class to emulate. And they're like, shit, this dude is not even working the road, and he's still in his vest and he's still in his full duty belt, ready for action. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's huge. That life outside of that blue world is very very important.
Yeah, I think that that's such a balancing act, right? I talked to a lot of new recruits, new officers, whether in my PD or outside, but a lot of the times a conversation comes up of, hey, how much do you share? And I'm like, man, that's so case by case, right? It depends on the officer, it depends on the spouse, and then even communicating. The theme that I think is one of the biggest takeaways for me is communicating a way to communicate that you don't want to say that much, or how to pick up on the cues of like, hey, heavy day at work. I don't want to. I don't really want to talk about the call, and that can be huge, right? Rather than not addressing it at all, where you just seem off, and the other doesn't know whether it's you, whether it's them, whether it's anything in between.
Right. If I'm being honest too, if I'm being honest, going through what I'm going through now, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. I still don't communicate like I should though. And even when I was going through therapy and all this other stuff, is one thing my therapist said is you've got to got sharing this with your wife. You've got to start sharing it with your wife. And I was in again being selfish. I was like, I can handle this
Mm,
without her having to worry about my well-being and my sanity and things of that nature. I can handle it. That's just me.
yeah,
So those are the things that it took me a while to understand that she has earned that right to hear how I'm doing, how I'm feeling, what I'm seeing, what I saw, what I did. She's earned that right. These other people that I don't know really haven't earned that right.
mm,
So you get around people and they're like, hey, tell me a cop story. And I'd be bow, 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 bow. My wife is like, I've never heard that story before.
mm,
I'm like, yeah, about that. So
yeah.
yeah, that's
It's
to me, that's one of
complicated.
the big takeaways. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of hear that you're trying to protect her from that, right? You're trying to protect her from the trauma. Sometimes it's a traumatic story. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it until it's literally like, holy cow, you did that? That sounds really dangerous.
Right.
And then she's picturing Ken, right? Her
Yeah.
husband in that situation. It's one thing you're smoking and joking with your buddies, whether they're cops or not, but then it's kind of this hero moment or this kind of extreme action movie moment. But then you're like, ooh, yeah, I am flesh and bone. And yes, cool, I wear this vest and I carry this gun.
Right. Yeah. Those superhero stories, right? You're telling the story and you're like, shit. Sometimes you tell a story and you're like, hey, I
Mm,
am kind of a superhero a little bit. I do have a cape somewhere on my body. You start telling the stories, you're like, yeah, that was. Hmm. I didn't. Until you start really thinking about what happened, you're like, yeah, that could have been pretty bad. That could have been
yeah.
pretty bad. But
I
like I
think there's a
said,
part of us that doesn't want to recognize that too,
oh,
you know?
100%. And if you do it enough times, it's second nature to you. You know what I'm saying? So that's part of the um, that's part of just doing the job. Is the pulling your gun becomes second nature. Putting your hands on people becomes second nature. Driving fast or pitting a car and things of that nature becomes second nature to you. Where you're like, yeah, I did that today. It's exciting. Don't get it twisted. It's very
Hmm.
exciting, but not sharing those moments when you can or when you think it's applicable with your family becomes problematic, in my opinion.
Yeah. What were some of the highlights for you when you think about your career as it's gone?
Um, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Most of my highlights about my career came outside of when I didn't have the uniform on. Well,
Hmm.
I'll take that back. The greatest, most rewarding job I ever did was working at the police academy. 110%. The most rewarding job that I've ever done was having the opportunity to teach at the police academy, to teach, mentor, counsel, guide, whatever you want to call it, at the academy. I still have people that I've haven't seen in 20 years, almost 20 years now,
Hmm.
say, "Hey, you were TAC officer up at the." I'm like, "Yeah, that was me. Yeah, that's right, man." And just like you said, I remember the story you told me about blah blah blah. One kid even reached out to me by email and talked about a foot pursuit drill that I ran.
Hmm.
And as he was going around the corner, he remembered I actually ran around the corner and hid just around the corner with a stick
Hmm.
in my hand.
Yeah.
And he came around the corner. I said, "This is you don't freaking cut these corners. Slow down, take it wide." And he said he remembered that in a real foot pursuit that he had, and he pied the corner. And just like I was standing there around that corner with a stick, the guy was doing the exact same thing. So
Uh,
those are some of the things. The second best is the Explorer program. I absolutely love the Explorer program. I'm having the opportunity to teach explorers and see explorers come through the academy when I'm there, or end up being police officers after I've taught them is great. But the biggest thing, and I don't know if this is positive or negative to police work, is when people don't know that I'm a police officer and they're like, "Dang, you're a police officer? You don't act like a police officer." I'm like, hmm. Well, how do police officers act? And I know exactly what they're talking about.
yeah.
Everybody knows exactly what they're talking about, but they're like, "Yeah, you don't act like a cop. Well, yeah, you the way you speak to people and the way you joke around, I would think that you would be more serious." I was like, "No, if you are a good guy and somebody gives you a badge, then you're gonna be a good guy with a badge. If you are a
Hmm.
freaking asshole
Hmm.
and then somebody gives you a badge, guess what? You're just gonna be an asshole with a badge."
Yeah. I
So
like to
that's
think
the
it's a yeah. I wrote once that police work is an accelerant, right? And so that
mm,
can mean a lot of things, but I think that it heightens whatever you have going on. It can be a force for good, right? It can absolutely be a force for bad. It's so much power and responsibility that if you have a good heart, good values, then yeah, you can do amazing things with that badge, with that power, with that influence. Um, but yeah, you put it in the wrong hands, then we see what that looks like.
yes,
Unfortunately,
100%.
too
Yes.
often.
And honestly, that's one of the things I always talk to people about, because there's so many people that see these videos and like, "See, I'll tell you, cops, da, 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 and do you do that?" I was like, "Listen, there's freaking 75,000 cops in this world, or whatever the number is, and you're looking at
Mm.
this one, and now you've associated that with the way all police officers are, and it's not fair. It's not fair." I was like, "How many times have you been pulled out of your car for no reason? Never." I was like, "So, but you see this other thing happen on the other side of the country, and this is how we are here." I was like, That's not a fair conclusion to draw.
Yeah, it's so tough because people believe what they want to believe. In 2020 riots, I remember there was someone that more of a loose acquaintance, a friend of a friend, but she was posting, in LA and some of the footage of riots, right, and some of the crowd dispersion techniques. So I remember her posting that the crowd got tear gassed for no reason, and I just and I wanted to have a little bit of conversation. That's when I kind of started Blue Grit and posting about being a cop and just trying to bridge a little bit, as myself. And in the conversation, through social media, she said, "Yeah, I mean, no one did anything, and then the police started launching tear gas. It was a peaceful protest." I was like, "Okay, do you?" I'm just curious. Were you in a position where you could see where the gas was launched from to feel really confident that nothing happened? She's like, "Yes, I'm very confident. Like I was right there. All that happened was people started throwing water balls at the police." And I said, "Okay." And in my head, and immediately I was like, "Okay, you can be throwing water bottles, but as a cop, I know that those could be ice. I know, ice bottles can be like rocks, like bricks, and that's dangerous, potentially lethal. I know as a cop that those water bottles could be filled with gasoline, right? So And so slowly, rather than get defensive, I just offered her these things that cops think about. And then she was like, I never thought of that, right? I never thought about what it would be like to get hit from, a water bottle 20 feet up in the air coming straight down on my dome, filled with ice,
Mm,
and how that could be a problem. But yeah, I'm not sorry to take off with that, but I think it is a little bit of um, this perception thing that sometimes can get away from us when we really look at what we're talking about.
right. And it's one of the things that I found that's why I started to pull back from social media a little bit is because if you see it constantly, if you're looking for it constantly, it will definitely jade um, the way that you see and perceive things. And that's everything. But if all you look at is police brutality online, then that's what you're going to start thinking. It's
Yeah.
because you're subjecting yourself to it. One of the things I've always said, especially when I was out on the street, is like, all you guys want to do is just shoot people. Da, 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 da. I was like, has anybody even pulled their gun out here? But y'all just waiting. What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? If that's the case, why would we wait?
Hmm.
Oh, because now we said something, so now you're not going to do it, right? I was like, okay, if that's your perception, and honestly, that's one of the things I've always said. People's perception is their reality, and it
Hmm.
takes a lot to change someone's perception. And honestly, things like this podcast is open to everybody to come listen to. Um, Education, going into schools, things of that nature, are huge in changing the perception. And instead of them saying like, "Well, you're just one off. You're not an asshole like those other guys. You're just one off," we can start to change that perception where no, the dude that you saw on the video is one off.
Hmm.
He's the outlier. He's the one that's not doing this correct thing. And like I tell people all the time is police can't wait to tell on other police officers. I'm gonna tell you the goddamn truth. When you're screwing up, we can't wait. Like, nah, bro,
Hmm.
that's not how we do business.
Hmm.
You got to go report this to the sergeant, or I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's not a. I'm not gonna say it's not a thin blue line kind of thing or a blue cone of silence, but nowadays it's not. There's no room for that, and there's no excuse to accept that anymore.
Yeah.
It's we have to be accountable. And
Absolutely.
when people start thinking, and you were able to do it, change someone's perception a little bit, and they can kind of see outside of that sphere of influence that they've developed themselves because you were able to articulate, this could be a frozen water bottle, this could be have gasoline, it could have urine, things of that nature. People can start understanding like, yeah. Even some of my friends said the exact same thing. I don't know how y'all do that. There's no way I'm gonna let somebody spit on me. There's no way I would let somebody. I was like, yeah, but we can't just get mad and punch somebody in the face.
Hmm.
It's there's a continuum that we have to follow. So
Yeah, for sure. Remind me, how long have you been in law enforcement?
I started in. That's funny. I just talked to my wife about this yesterday. I even asked her, said, "When did I get out the military?" She said, "Yeah, you got out in '97." And then I started my law enforcement career in '98.
Hmm.
So 25 years.
Yeah. In 25 years, we talk about how hard or maybe impossible it is to change someone's perspective, but what things have you seen and done that helps move the needle ever so slightly?
For me or for other people.
Yeah, for other people, in the work you do or how you do it.
Yeah. Like you said, I'm beyond 100% honest with you. I am who I am. I am who I am. I am the same dude when I'm at work than when I'm coaching football or when I'm playing cards or I'm at my barbecue in the backyard. I am that same guy. Um, if you if I get irritated with you, you're gonna know. Um, Other than that, you can ask me anything. Just don't put your hands on me. Don't spit on me. I'll be I'll be the fascist. I'll be all of that. I will be all of that. Now I
Hmm.
wasn't going to articulate to you why I am not, but if you don't buy it, there's nothing I can do about it. But the thing that I try not to do is prejudge people, and I think that's where we get into trouble a little bit. And I've always said in other podcasts, we kind of get ourselves into trouble. We say little slick things like, "Yeah, well, I'm not going to pull over taxpayers." Oh, well, what do you mean by taxpayer? Well, people who pay their taxes. Well, what do they look like? Or where do they live?
Mm,
And we start to like kind of justify doing some of the things that we do to certain people. And I call people out on that. I said, what, well, okay, you said taxpayers because I've had this conversation on my other on a different podcast is
mm-hmm.
articulate to me, tell me exactly what a taxpayer looks like. And it's difficult for them
Yeah,
or they don't want to.
yeah,
So I think making sure that we are fair, consistent, honest, true all the time. Even when people piss you off, even when a certain neighborhood gets the mass majority of our attention, making sure that we're still being fair and honest because there's
mm-hmm.
still, and I'm gonna use uh, financial and demographics.
Mm-hmm.
Even the broke people have really good people in their neighborhoods. Even the rich people have bad people in their neighborhoods. Just because you
Absolutely.
have money doesn't mean you should get better service than the people who don't have money.
Yeah,
That's why I tended to work at different areas because those people have children. Those people have grandmothers and grandfathers that they want to see be protected, just like everyone else. So
yeah,
that's kind of one of the things I always think about is we can't use these little slick words when we say taxpayers,
mm-hmm.
things of that nature.
Yeah. I think what I really appreciate so far this conversation is like highlight that some of your biggest impacts have been teaching, and that sounds like it went from academy and explorers, like this very more obvious and traditional way of mentoring, but then also a little bit more subtly, like in the ways that you do patrol work, which is even to challenge some of the things that we say as a culture, we say in the the locker room or in passing. Because I think that one of the most impactful things, and I like to try to make lemonade, especially when I sometimes I need to be reminded to be positive in this career, but
Sure.
that's a lot of what this is about. But we saw a very large tightening and restricting of police powers and how we look at things. But I think that we need to look at what we're doing and how we're policing. Because even to the point you're saying, hey, sometimes our certain neighborhood might get a lot more police attention. And yeah, that might follow criminal trends, that might follow a lot of things. But we need to separate what are we actually doing and how does that actually address the criminal trends versus creating stats or something like that.
Mm,
Where, I'll say, this is not like a departmental thing, but culturally, especially as a young man coming into this job, I'm just learning how to police in the ways I know how. And at the time I started, you could get a suspended license for not paying child support. You could get a suspended license for not paying your tickets. And that's a crime, right? That's not just an infraction. That's like you can be arrested, and the expectation was you'd be arrested, you'd go to jail, your car would be towed, your car would be searched. And, to me, it felt like good police work, right? Because you can find warrants and you can find drugs and all these things in the car, and it just became normal. However, and this is, I'm sure some people listening would say they don't even like what I'm saying because that was good police work. My point isn't so much whether it's good police work or not. My point is, what were we doing to impact the crime going on in that area? Someone might argue that something would that stop, and someone might argue like absolutely nothing because we were there for huge, big time robberies, and here I was taking someone to jail for not paying their child support. So
yeah,
just something to offer.
I can definitely see that. I can definitely see that. So and it kind of goes back to having the authority to use your um,
Discretion.
yeah, using discretion. If it was like 8:30 in the morning and someone's going to work and they're suspended, how does that help them by freaking impounding their car and making them
Yeah.
walk? How does it help them? I mean, at the end of the day, yes, you didn't pay a ticket, 100%, and that's why your license is suspended. But are we helping them by taking their car from them so
Mm-hmm.
they can't go to work, or they're taking the kids to school and we impound their car? I've seen it. I've seen it happen. I've seen officers have mom, grandma, and grandkids on the side of the road while they impound their car.
Mm.
Yes, there has to be a limit to what's acceptable behavior in any situation. But in that situation, you know that they're taking their kids to school and you still put them on the side of the road. To me, that's not That's to me, it's not
Yeah.
unethical because it has nothing to do with your ethics. It has to do with just being a human being and put
Yeah. And what are we
empathy,
solving,
right?
right?
Right, empathy, right? Put
Empathy,
yourself in that
exactly.
situation. Yeah, you're not. Yeah, I get it. If she gets in a wreck, and that's what this is one of my PTOs told me when I was going through. If that person gets in a wreck down the road, or your family's riding and they wreck your car, and you had a chance to keep them off the road, I was like, yeah, but that's anybody. That's somebody that's speeding. That's somebody that rolled through a stop sign. That's anybody. Um, and we kind of correlate those two things in, like you said. I remember DWLS stops were fantastic. Drugs, guns, and all this other stuff.
Hmm.
Dude said he's going to work. You can see his work stuff in his car, or you can see the kids and they're going to whatever middle school they're going to, and you're like, yeah, but you shouldn't be driving. I'm going to impound your car. I wouldn't do. That's just me, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying you're wrong for doing it, but yeah, just having
Yeah.
discretion is a great thing. Having discretion is a great thing.
Yeah. And to the younger, newer cops listening, it's like, hey, if you're only shown, if it's only explained to you that, you only have a hammer, then of course everything looks like a nail. But consider this example, and whether it's a suspended person or someone that has no insurance, man, a $550 ticket for no insurance is not going to help them afford insurance. So, yes, it is a big deal, uninsured drivers, on and on. But a potential is, hey, I have all your documentation. You can catch a ticket, or you can go get insurance and you can provide me proof, drop it off at the police station or what have you, however you want to do it. I've done that a number of times. I know a lot of officers that have done that a number of times because ultimately, if someone's trying to get back on their feet, the last thing, and this is an ideological thing, right? But think about it as yourself as a human,
Mm.
like you said, Ken. But also, if this is their if this is their engagement with a police officer, which kicking them when they're down, and that might be their crisis moment in their lives, is when they couldn't afford insurance and had to get to work. But when they were doing, they were just doing the thing, driving down the street, and they weren't in a wreck or anything like that, didn't cause a problem for someone, and that officer gave them an opportunity, and they were able to scrape it all together, or call in a favor and get some insurance. I mean, how huge could that be for community relations for that person and everyone they tell? I mean, there's a lot of power in that.
Yeah, and I think that's 100% correct though. Even the way you explained it, because I've, and I'm sure you've had it too, is you're giving somebody a break. They don't take advantage of it and like, sucker, we got one over on you. They actually go and get that insurance, or they actually go and improve themselves, and they see you later and they say, hey, you don't remember me, but you did X, Y, and Z for me. Honestly, it's just no different than someone graduating the academy saying, you probably don't remember this, but you said
Mm-hmm.
X, Y, and Z, and that affected me, and I was able to do this. Same concept. Um, and I'm not saying everybody needs a break, because you pull the same guy over twice and say, you got your insurance yet? I just pulled you over last week. No, I didn't get it yet. Like, come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
You've had an opportunity to go get it. Or I just didn't have the money. You've had an opportunity, bro. Come on now.
Yeah. At a
So,
certain point, you keep rolling the dice.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's on
And
you.
some people are cool with that. They're like, yep, I probably won't see him again. I'll just go a different way to work. And then guess who just saw you again?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good stuff. Really good stuff.
Well, appreciate the conversation. And before we started recording, I was telling you, um, I was recently on a different podcast on being a police officer, and I was asked about our Lakewood officers that were killed in line of duty, and how impactful that was for me as a newer officer. I was newly solo, um, and so that was part of the things, and wanting to share experience and lessons learned and just insight to help all of our officers be more well, and all the people coming into this job know a lot about the realities of the job. But for me, it was so impactful because, well, for several reasons, right? But it made the job so real, and the necessity to know your purpose in doing this dangerous job, it made it so real. Um, but if you're comfortable, I wanted to ask you about your partners at Lakewood, um, your brothers and sister, and what that experience was like for you.
Right. It was. I'm gonna be honest with you. It was the and it still is the toughest part of my entire career was that. There's no two ways about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had the I had the opportunity, and I was invited. And I told you I was going to probably get emotional about it, but I had the opportunity, and I was invited to go to coffee with them right before the end of my graveyard shift, and they were oncoming day shift. And
Yeah.
a guy that I actually work with in Kent, Greg, Greg Richards.
Yep.
We both came over to Lakewood together, and he was like, "Hey man, come on, we're gonna go have coffee." I was like, "Bro, there's no way I can get off work, drink coffee, go home and go to sleep, and then go to my son's football game." I was like, "There's no way, bro. There's just no way." And he said something. Um, Tina Lavallee, I think it was Chris Walden. Tina
Mm-hmm.
had said something as well. Um, it was, and then and I both told them both no. And I actually contemplated as I was going past the um, the exit, Steel Street exit. I was like, should I just stop in there? And I said no. And I just kept going. So I went home, and I might have been asleep for an hour, hour and a half when my wife came and woke me up.
Mm-hmm.
She was on the phone with her sister, and her sister was asking, "Is Kenny home? Is Kenny home?" She's like, "Yeah, he's right here." And she says, "Oh, so and so, the Lakewood police got shot." Da da da. So I said, "Hmm." I was like, "Where was this at?" She said, 112th and Steel. I was like, "It's probably county." I was like, "Turn it on, let me look at it."
Mm-hmm.
Woke up, and then I saw the police cars out front, and I immediately jumped on my phone. I called Greg. I called Tina, like repeatedly. No answer, no answer, no answer. And you start justifying stuff in your head. Oh, you know what? They're probably busy. They're probably busy. So I,
Mm-hmm.
without calling in, I just jumped in my car, got dressed, jumped in my car, and boogied down there. Um, and that's where I learned that I'd lost my people. So it it affected me more than I knew at that time. Like here we are, 15 years later, and it still gets to me. It absolutely still haunts me that I didn't go. And again, I've been in therapy for it. I've seen psychiatrists for it. I've gotten PTSD off of it. Not just that, but some other stuff too. But
Mm-hmm.
it it kind of goes back to like you said earlier. It's this job is inherently dangerous, and some people are going to dislike you. Never met you before, but you wear a badge and you represent something that they don't like. Um, you having that's why I think having the ability to change people's thought process when we can, or what they think about police or their perspective, is very important. Very important. Would somebody talking to this fool be? I don't even want to say his name before this stuff happened. I doubt it. I think he was mentally ill to begin with. But with that, having having lost very good friends, having lost people that I've broke bread with and chit chatted with and trained with and done all these things with, it's lasting. It uh, really does affect you mentally. It affects you at home. It affects you at work, and that event is triggered by numerous other events that I've seen and experienced too. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I would tell people take care of your people. Make sure you have all your ducks in a row, right? Because that's something we talked about when we was at the academy. Make sure your wife understands that you're not going to be able to just stop doing what you're doing and come home. Make sure your family has, you have a will and you got your insurance and that you're living, you know, within your means and things of that nature. Because you never know, man. It was a it was a horrifying experience for me. It was a horrifying. I keep forgetting about it, and somebody reminded me the other day that I broke some stuff within the police station when I knew. You know what I'm saying? You know, and then somebody tells you, it's like I wish I was
Mm-hmm.
wrong, kind of thing. So that was my biggest that was the worst moment of my entire career was losing my guys.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you sharing that, and it shows so much courage for you to be willing to talk about this because there's so many current first responders, whether it's fire or dispatch, that listen in on here, officers, people that are thinking about the job or newly in it, and you got to think about the realness of it. And it's not to say don't do it, but it's a real thing. I recognize, from what I'm hearing, is that there was a layer of survivor's guilt, and that's a very common thing. I know personally because, like as you pointed out, Greg, and you came from Kent. Mark was from Tukwila originally, right? So a lot of guys knew him from the SWAT team up here, the regional team, and so it hit a lot of people really close to home. That everyone knew each other for years, and then I'm, kind of the new kid with some other new kids around here. But I heard a lot of layers of, survivor's guilt. A lot of people even inserting these things. I'll offer this. Some people are like, man, if I could have convinced Greg not to have gone to Lakewood, right, he'd be alive. Or if I had trained him differently in FTO, maybe he'd be alive. Maybe they'd all be alive, right? And these people, these officers, they're verbalizing these things, and they've really felt it, right? They're thinking about, what did I do wrong? How did I step or misstep that this whole thing could have been different? I know that I even did something a little similar to what you verbalized when Diego was killed. I was working at an event center, and I went home and I went to bed, and then he was killed. There was part of me that was like, man, why was I in such a rush to get home? Like, I could, maybe if I would have hung out and, kind of shot the breeze with some guys, maybe the call came out and I would have changed something. Or even I said, hey, if I hadn't promoted, I would have been working a dog and I would have been on that shift, and I could have maybe done something different, or maybe I would have taken a spot, or, just you try to play this butterfly effect thing. But I appreciate you sharing that just because it brings up this conversation. And I hope the outside listeners, they can recognize, like, none of it's reasonable, none of it's rational, but we still do this to ourselves. So to be able to recognize that, and when it comes up for you and your people, call them out, keep them in check, right? Because it's not fair.
Right. You're 100% correct with that. And it goes back to what we were just talking about, right? So we are so much in the habit of being the guy that comes in and saves the day, though, right? A woman's getting beat by her husband. We come in, we save the day. Somebody robs a bank. We come in and save the day. A car accident. We come in and keep people calm until the fire department gets there. We come in and save the day. It's no different than dealing with. And again, like I told my therapist, I was like, you can say that shit until you're blue in the face. I'm telling you, it would have been different if I was there. And I believe that with every fiber in my being, that if I was there, it would have been 100% different. She goes, yeah, you could have been dead. I was like, yeah, okay. But somebody else would have been alive, or he would have been dead too, or something to that effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it rational? Probably not. But I've been able to rationalize that in my head, even knowing that I shouldn't be thinking that, right? Which leads me to promoting good mental health.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with PTSD from that, and that honestly is probably the most significant piece. But we had that train derailment up in DuPont where I went to, and I saw, dead bodies and things of that nature. I've seen
Mm-hmm.
a baby was killed by his dad and things of that nature. Those things actually they stick in my head.
Yeah.
So just understanding that nightmare you have where you're shooting a bad guy and it's not working, that is starting you down that process of PTSD. I've had that dream for a long time, but that is starting you down that process when you're not getting enough sleep. It got to the point where I did not want to go to sleep because I was having nightmares every single night, and I was getting 2 to 4 hours of sleep a night, and I would go right to work and go work my ass off. Um, I refused to miss work because the day that I miss work would be the day something happens that I wasn't there to go help. So I was working my butt off. I was getting 2 hours of sleep. The only thing that I can say is this is why I love my kids and love my wife to death is I had the opportunity to coach both of my kids in numerous sports, and that honestly probably saved my
Mm.
life. Is being able to have something outside of work that I look forward to, because I don't know what I would do if I missed their rearing, missed their upbringing, missed the raising of my children. I just wouldn't do that. And I tell my dad that all the time. I was like, my dad wasn't there all the time. He just wasn't. My parents got divorced, but he taught me how to be a dad because all the things that I'm doing for him, doing for my boys and my daughter as well, my father did for me on the
Mm-hmm.
weekends. On the weekdays, I never saw the dude. Weekends, he was there. He showed me how to cut grass. He showed me how to wash cars. He would change the oil. He showed me how to coach. He showed my entire neighborhood how to kick and throw a football. The entire neighborhood. So having those examples of how to be a dad, not a police dad, but just a dad,
Yeah.
struck a chord with me that I can say that is what I can honestly say saved my life.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I mean, it's really comes back to the simple notion or phrase of like live outside the blue world, right? And so it's that your family's there, the career is the career. Who knows how long we have? It might be 3 years, it might be 30. But at a certain point, whether you're, whether even if you're in your mid 50s or almost 60, you're going to hang it up and your family should still be there. And so are we watering that relationship? Are we taking care of that? Um, and it's not to be cliche, but clearly your family takes care of you, right? The more you put in, the more you get out. And so, even speaking about how to be a dad or how to show up, and having that other purpose is huge. I mean, I know so many examples, whether people had a family or not, when work became their purpose, and it's really easy to justify it, right? Because the overtime checks help take care of your family, and you're good at the job, and if you don't show up, then your guys are even shorter, or that other crew they could use some help. So hey, like, it's making everyone safer if I come out. But yeah, if you're not taking care of yourself, the simple things like you're saying, sleep, um, as it pertains directly to mental health, then that's going to be a problem. It's not going to be sustainable.
Yeah, it's 100%. You can't live that way. You can't. You just can't do it. And I get it. I told like I've been told my counselor and my therapist. I was like, I got so used to doing that. That was the norm. If I slept longer, it felt weird to me. That yeah, you shouldn't be sleeping that long. What are you doing? Get up. But when you're scared to go to sleep, therein kind of lies a problem. And I
Mm-hmm.
probably should have went and sought help beforehand, but I didn't. I just thought that was just okay. You don't sleep. Yeah, you're gonna have these nightmares. You don't want to have nightmares? Don't sleep. Yep, go to work. You would never guess that I haven't been getting any sleep, but it takes its toll. It takes its toll. And we were talking about that, right? We're talking about your mental health, your sleep, your diet, uh, your um, your family relationship. Um, that's one of the things that I've always said is police work doesn't define me. It just doesn't. I was this dude before I put the badge on. I'm the same guy when I took the badge off. I firmly believe that you have to have that workplace, family balance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you don't, like you said, some guys work and they're making $250,000 a year because they're working their behinds off. You're a single guy, okay, okay. But when's the last time you talked to your mom? When's the last time you took your mom to dinner? When's the last time you said to your girlfriend, "Hey, me and you are going away this weekend"? Or do we just say, "Yep, I got to work, got to go do it," because it's fun to put the cape on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I said, I love doing the job. I absolutely love doing the job. There's certain things I like doing. There's certain things I didn't like doing. I hated taking collisions. Didn't like them.
Mm-hmm.
But I love taking bad guys off the street. I loved it. But if that's all you do, that's gonna take a dramatic toll on you and your relationship. So what percentage of marriages in police work end up in divorce? Do you know?
No, I feel like it's usually. I mean, it's regarded as a very high stat, and I don't know if it's accurate, but let's say it's high enough. It's plenty high enough, and I'll actually add on. Those ones that there's plenty that the stats probably don't reflect. Is like marriages that could certainly be better, right?
Mm.
Marriages that could certainly be less rocky, more fruitful for both people. But yeah, do you know?
I, I heard it's better than 50%. That's what I do know.
Yeah,
I've heard that it's better than 50%, but going to where you just went to that where you're not in a good relationship with your spouse is probably in the 70s, 70%, 75% um, area. Um, but with that is having the ability to make sure that you and your family are um, experiencing life together. That's my biggest takeaway from all of this is making sure that people understand that police work is something I mean people are, it's a calling and all this other stuff. Police is something you do. It's not something you are. You police because that's what you do. You are a father. You are a husband. You are a son. Because if if um if you do not if someone took police work away from you tomorrow, you're not it's not going to be the end of the world. You're like, "Oh, I can't live without that." Somebody take your child from you, someone take your spouse from you, that's
hmm
when you will say, I can't go on like this." So that's one of the things that people have to, especially young cops, understand that you're a police is not what you are. It's what you do.
yeah,
You are a good man, or you are a good father, right? Or you are a good husband. That's what you need to be. And all of that stuff is cyclical. Because if you're a good father and you see kids outside doing something that's not supposed to do, and you have that badge on, you talk to them about the mistakes they're making. Or you see a young man that's going down the wrong road with his spouse, you'll talk to him. It's like, hey man, I'm not trying to get in your business, but you're gonna lose her.
hmm
You're gonna lose her. She called your neighbors called 911 for a reason because the way you were talking to him, or even if it's the female, the way you were talking to the other person was scary. And if these neighbors are scared, the person you're talking to probably got scared as well, and you're gonna probably end up being single behind that. Those types of things, I believe from deep within myself is it's a job. It's a rewarding job, but it's not who you are.
yeah,
Like we said earlier, right? If you're an asshole before you put that badge on, you're an asshole after you put that badge on. Would you call it an amplifier? That what you
yeah.
call it?
Accelerant.
Accelerant.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
I
both.
love
Yeah,
that.
it's both.
I'm stealing that. I'm telling you that right
Please
now.
do.
That's
Please
gonna get
do.
taken.
Good. No flattery. I mean, what pops in my mind is you are speaking about these examples where you're real with people and you're giving this insight, and you're giving this life advice, and some would even say you're trying to help parent these people. And I hate the comparison. Like sometimes we say it cynically of like, oh, we go out to parent people and we tell them what not to do, what they're allowed to do, and put them in timeout. There is that to a degree. However, what you're talking about, what I hear is this human connection, right? Whether someone's has taken the time, whether they had a parent figure to say, hey, hear me out, this is what I see. And I'm thinking about, imagining you in that situation, uh, and that's an image of a fantastic cop who gets it. But it's not because you're a cop that you're able to speak that way. It's because you're a person who cares. You're a good human being. That
Mm,
I this throws me back to early in my career where I didn't have any relationship inside. I wasn't a dad. I wasn't a spouse or a serious partner or anything like that. And here I am trying to tell people how they ought to live their lives or negotiate conflict, but I didn't have any insight to do that, right? So I'm just kind of talking out of my behind, right? Whereas now, if I'm talking to someone, I know what it's like to be a dad. I know what it's like to be terrified. I know what it's like to be so frustrated and not feel like you're able to get through to your partner, your spouse. But I also know how to talk to people as a human, rather than as some kid that's trying to prove something with a chip on
right.
his shoulder, because
Yes.
that's his job, and he has this cool uniform and this cool badge. So these are things that I try to share with newer officers. Like, hey, don't try to be something you're not.
Mm,
Show up with care, and you'll get most of the way there, right? With good intent, and don't try to butter it up or inflate yourself. Just just be real with people, and they'll see that.
Yeah, because people see right through fakeness, right?
Hmm.
And I think one of the things you just said was, don't try to be someone you're not. If you try to be this super hardcore, just the facts, ma'am, uh, I do not display my feelings or my emotions while I'm at work. That shit just don't work. It
Hmm.
just doesn't work. Showing people that you're genuinely interested in them being, I'm gonna say successful for lack of a better word, goes a long way. And again,
Yeah.
like I will continue to say this, and you're going to hear me say it the entirety of this interview. It's when people come up to you and say, "You probably don't remember me, but you did X, Y, and Z." And I usually don't remember them. I said, "But thank you for coming up to me saying that. It just lets me know I'm doing this the right way, right?" Or you can have the other way. We're like, "Hey, you're the freaking asshole that impounded my car, or you're the dick that took my kid to juvie for X, Y, and Z." Right?
Hmm.
If we One of the things that we have a bad um, tendency to do is to not explain shit very well to people. And when we don't explain things to people, they fill in those blanks themselves. And if we're gonna do that, then we can't complain about the way people view us. If we're not human and we're not showing people, some sort of humanity, then we're going to continue to have this view of what police officers are like, right?
Hmm.
The biggest thing that I've seen is even dealing with some of the most hardened gangsters ever. When one of them's getting arrested and they say, "Hey man, can you check on my mom?" After you just fought this cat and he's in the back of your
Hmm.
car and you're taking him to jail and you're holding these little conversations with him and they say, "Hey man, you do me a favor, can you check on my mom? Where she stay?" "Oh, she's over at the Wisteria Walk apartment, da 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 da." "All right, when I leave here, I'll go talk to her." "When we tell her you're in jail?" "Yeah."
Hmm.
Those dudes remember that. They will remember that because, like I said, "Hey man, you checked on my mom when I was away, man. I appreciate you doing that." They remember that. You know who else remembers that? Mom and nephew
Hmm.
and cousin and all those people. "Hey, Officer Tongue he's the real deal, man. Don't screw." And they will say, "Hey, that's not the guy to screw with. He ain't like that." All of that
Yeah.
stuff comes into play, and I'm sure you've experienced it. You've been doing this job for a little while. You are going to experience those things. But like you said, sometimes we get frowned upon by doing stuff like that. Like, my job ain't to babysit his mom. My job's not to. Is it going to kill you to do that?
Hmm.
Is it going to kill
It's an
you to go by there?
opportunity.
Right.
Yeah, it's an opportunity, and especially if you're the one that's been fought with or run from. It's emotional, right? You took it personally, but that
100%.
shouldn't preclude someone else showing up, getting a statement, being the good cop or whatever, right? Just hey, if someone fought you, then maybe not the person taught you. But if you are cool and calm, and that is an opportunity for you, right? And for those that'll throw it out there, no, you're not rewarding bad behavior. He's not gonna he's not gonna do it again simply because you went and talked to mom, and that's like
Right.
conditioning. No, no, no.
That's
It's
silly.
it's an
That's,
opportunity to do something positive and potentially repair something. I mean, even when I got to the point sometimes where someone ran from me and fought me and the dog, you know usually people don't fight too long, and then it would kind of be over. Um, yeah, when people were willing to talk, I would just talk and say, "Hey, man, like,
sure.
why, why'd you do that?"
Mm.
And just the fact of I'm not like yelling down their throat. I'm just trying to talk to them. It went a long way, right? And there's a lot of opportunities for that if you just connect and abandon the ego and go from there.
Well, honestly, too, I've done a lot of jobs in police work. Um, TAC officer, coordinator, DT coordinator, defensive tactics instructor, uh, negotiator, crisis negotiator, hostage negotiator, done all these other things too. And I think that I get selected to do those things is because of the relationship I can develop with people. I believe that.
Hmm.
With that, it's and the question I was going to ask you is how many times have you ever taken someone to jail and they said, "Hey man, I just want to shake your hand for treating me like a man. I want to shake your hand for treating me with respect." Happen?
Couple
Yeah.
or a thank you.
As simple as
It
that.
feels
Like
weird, right?
it does. And you're like, "Well, I didn't do nothing I wouldn't ordinarily do." But evidently, somewhere they've had an alternate experience where they felt they weren't treated with respect, or they weren't treated like a man, or they weren't, you know, dealt with in a manner they thought was respectful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that is, to me, one of the things that I cherish is when people say things, even if it's for coming unlocking their car. Oh, thank you so much. I would have to spend freaking $75 to come get this car open. Those things, right, are rewarding in itself. It's not again. I'm not always just saying, "Oh, hug a thug" and do all this other stuff. No, people in general. People in general. You take boyfriend or girlfriend to jail for beating up either their spouse or significant other, and that person's like, thank you. I can get away from this individual now. I can move away. I couldn't do it before he wouldn't let me leave. Hey, let's let you know you're doing the right thing. Sometimes it's you know sometimes it gets to the point where you're like, this job is thankless. But I found honestly, the more that people were hating the police, you started getting more people saying, hey, thank you for the job you do. Hey, you have a tough job, man. I just want to say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That happens quite a bit.
Yeah, that's huge to be able to navigate it, and it shows that you're in it for the right duration because you're not looking at it so negatively. And I think that for those of us that are around the people where everyone has a bad day, a bad week, whatnot, but if it's kind of months are churning on and you can't think of the last time someone said something good about the job, then
Mm,
maybe it
mm,
is time to reflect and maybe it's time to move on.
right.
Because a stuck cop is not going to do anyone any good. Certainly not him or herself. Certainly not for family. Um, and there are a lot of things that we can do. It is scary. Change is scary, but that's part of the conversation too. Having people on here that have moved on to the next chapter and talking about the next chapter. And so I hope that that's a continuing thing for especially the new cops because there's so much we can't control, which is to recognize, hey, you might have the goal of 30, 32 years. I still have the goal of 30, 32 years, but I'm not going to be naive enough to recognize that I can control that wholeheartedly by myself. I can't. I'll do my best, but I'm sure that there's other things. Should that path be a different path?
Right. 100%. I think that I think you're nailing the nail right on the head. If yeah, when the job is nothing but negativity, you're not helping anybody, not even helping yourself. You're actually opening yourself up to be getting yourself in more trouble. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think you're 100% spot on with that. But I will continue to say, man, I absolutely love the job. I absolutely love doing police work. I mean, like I said, it's one of the most rewarding jobs that you can have, and then being able to do these specialty positions like the honor guards and being able to be a TAC officer and crisis and hostage negotiator, those things like that are absolutely fun. It's a blast. And when you first start out, right, you don't even want to go home half the time. You're like, oh shoot, the beeper went off. I can stick around, Sarge. I can stay a little
Mm-hmm.
longer because that was exciting, right?
Yeah.
Right? You can only ride that emotional roller coaster so many times, though.
Yeah, especially you're working late swing, and normally I'd get off at 1, but man, that's like bar closing time, so you're waiting for it, right? Maybe I'll go slow through the hallway, and then you get quote unquote lucky. We call it lucky. I don't know. I don't know if this mentality still exists in today's climate, but you want to hang out, so Sarge's like, "Yep, go." Right? You and your buddy, you're like, "Oh, you can stay on." At least till 4 because
Right.
we need you, right, for the fights and all that. You're like, "All right, here we go." Uh, yeah, different world, different time.
It is. And that's a good thing too, man, is we haven't done this job for a minute. We recognize how times have changed. And this is something I was talking to another officer about. I said, but these new guys, they don't know any different. They don't know. They don't know what we used to be able to do until we
Mm-hmm.
tell them. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, shit, that must have been fun. But when they're going through the academy, they don't know, oh, we used to be able to do these things and we can't do them anymore until one of these TAC officers or uh, patrol patrol beat partners or whatever end up telling them, and then they're like, oh no, that sucks. This, that, and the third. No, just here's the rules now.
Yeah.
You got to follow the rules. That's all.
Yeah. I hate it when people are like, "Oh, I would never do this job," and "What are you doing here?" And sure, give your thoughts of concern, right? But once the fact is, people are coming in, they want to do this job, whatever this means. They want to make a difference, and they can absolutely do that. And so, like, let's not just cloud it with like, "Well, you can't do anything now." No, there's a lot you can do. a ton you can do that an average person certainly cannot, and that they wish they had a little bit of the power or the training or the confidence to do something about what they see out there, and you can.
Well, I'm going to say this too, because we were talking about the differences, from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or 15 years ago to now is like even at the academy. One of the things that I always talk about, I was doing a reserve academy. I did like 3 reserve academies at the Lakewood PD where I was the TAC officer for it. One thing, and you probably remember me saying this, you'll never get in trouble for calling somebody sir or ma'am, even no matter what their age. You will never get in trouble for saying that. And it seemed like they were trying to go away from that. So um, I trained up some Lakewood officers right before they went to the academy, and I said, you're going to find when you get there, you're going to be probably one of the only ones that are at parade rest and that are saying sir all the time and this, that, and the third. The first time I went up there to visit them, they were like, you are absolutely right, sir. It's like night and day. They said, I don't know why people wouldn't prepare them to go to the academy and to say these things because they call on us all the time as examples of how to be respectful and this, that, and the thing. I was like, well, then make it a requirement then. Make it a requirement. You will never get in
I
trouble
think it's
for
coming back a little bit.
I think it is.
I hear they're having to do push-ups. I hear that they're having to come to attention at times. Which is good. Like there's a purpose for it.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be honest with you. When you guys got there the first day after your PT test, y'all got y'all ass smoked up, bro. Oh my gosh, you guys got smoked. And then your first day was even worse.
Yeah.
You guys got pretty. You guys had some of the most historic smoke session at that time. 100%. One of the guys I remember was Anderson. And I told him, I was like, bro, you trying to make me lose my job. Because he couldn't do anything. The first day, he couldn't do a doggone thing. I was like, I get it. You trying to make me lose my job, aren't you? You want me to put my hands on you. That's what you want. I'm not going to do it, but you trying to get me to put my hands on you. And he says, I talked to him not too long ago, and he said the same thing. He's like, yeah, I remember you saying that. You remember telling me that? I was like, yeah, I do. You're one of the few guys almost got me. So yeah, just having.
But I think that was the first of a series of things that got him to be a very accomplised cop.
100%.
Yeah,
that dude he's incredible
leader.
right now.
Yeah, he's on fire.
Yes, he is. I am glad to see him being so successful, man. I'm glad.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, it's been a great conversation. You tell us a little bit about what the next chapter is. We keep talking about next chapters. What's up for you?
So, yep, I'm currently doing this LNI thing for my PTSD. Shoot, I haven't worked since last April. So anybody who's listening to this podcast, please, 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 your mental health is a priority. It's in this order, in my opinion: mental health, family, physical health, job. In that order. Because if your mental health's not where it needs to be, you're no good to your family. You're no good to your department. You're hurting yourself. So, but yeah, I'm starting to do some consulting work. I'm starting to do some getting some business stuff lined up. I am actually excited about it. I'm hoping that I was hoping to have my first contract right now, but the bank that I'm dealing with right now said they can't do anything until the new fiscal year where they put it in their budget and budget for it. So, which is fine. I don't have an issue with it. I'm not hurting for money. LNI's paying me 67% of what my salary was, and that's roughly what I'm going to get from my retirement. So I'm okay with it. Still coaching, still doing my thing. By the way, Graham Kapowski Eagles, state champions 2 years ago.
There you go.
Played on ESPN, beat Travis Hunter, the #1 player in the country. And again, still coaching my kid. My kid's on the team. He's doing well.
Nice. Really
enjoy it. Been able to reach out to a couple of officers and talk to them about the process that I am going through. And if you know me, you can feel free to call me because I'm an open book. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm not trying to act like I'm better than anybody else. I was going through it. I figured it out. I think I figured it out with the help of Phoebe Mulligan, my
Hmm.
therapist. She is an incredible, incredible therapist.
I know Phoebe's name. We haven't met, but I know her.
She is the freaking cat's meow. She is it. That's corny. Cat's meow. Who says that shit? I mean, come on, dog. But yeah, she's it. She is it. She is a. I think she works at the academy too, talking about some of this stuff. So,
Good.
100%.
Well, sweet, man. If people are looking for consulting in the vein, as you explained to me, largely for banks, right? So that's threat assessment, training, fraud, all the things that bank could want. Should they find you through me, or is there a route you want to send them?
Well, yep. The web page is almost done. It's going to be KJH Consulting LLC. My website should be up in the next week or two. Um,
Sweet.
so if you're looking for some consulting stuff, and I'm looking to take some people on to do some teaching at these banks. So if you're looking to do
Fantastic.
some of that stuff, yeah, I'm going to pay you. I'm not one of those dudes. Um, by all means,
It's an
hit me up.
internship. It's
Absolutely.
a work study, apprenticeship.
Yep. Yeah, I greatly appreciate it though. Great job. When you reached out to me, man, I was like, oh shoot, my man Tong is hit me up.
Hmm.
Tung Fu.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
me.
yeah. Um, I will say this. Where you are now is absolutely impressive. What you're doing now is absolutely impressive. And honestly, I think what you are doing in educating and informing police officers and just people in general about this job and the things around this job is absolutely incredible. You should probably be doing something more than a podcast. You should
Thank you,
probably
man.
be you should probably be doing something else. If y'all could see this dude's hair right now, you'll be like, "Yep, he belongs on TV."
Yeah, and we're
I
not even
mean,
recording. What a waste.
yeah, yeah. That hairstyle is it.
Well, thank you, man. You gotta if you got it, flaunt it. And I think a lot of my bald friends would say that I gotta rock my hair because I gotta do it for those
Do
that
you see,
who
do you see
cannot.
my hair? Do you see me? Yeah, my shit's
Man,
bald.
that means a lot. I do appreciate it. I'm wondering. I'm gonna open it up, and I guess if I hate it, I just won't air it. But what do you remember about young Eric Tung, and what were your thoughts as I was coming through and finishing academy and gonna hit the mean streets?
I remember this. I remember there was a group of guys that I said, this person has nothing to worry about. I am confident in sending this guy out into the world of police work and not having to worry that they're going to do something stupid, that they're going to abuse their power, they're going to do those things. You are one of those people where I was like, he gets it. I remember you laughing and smiling constantly, constantly. Um, I
It
can tell
had
you
to
that.
only be at the end, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, even in no, even in the class, I remember you having a smile on your face. And I'm trying to remember who you sat next to, but I do
We'll
remember. I
see.
remember this guy's going to be a good cop. He's going to be a good cop. I honestly believe that, even without the tutelage and the whatever all this homage you try to pay to me, you were going to be a good cop regardless because of the person that you are. Not oh well, you're Ken Henson's protege. None of that shit. Good people end up being good cops, my opinion. Sometimes we can get affected by some of the people that we work with and things of that nature, but
Hmm.
I just one of the things I remember is yeah, that he's got it. You never got in trouble. You never were any of the stuff that.
I didn't get in trouble through you. I did have a visit
Oh, did you from
uh,
your?
from my sergeant. It was a miscommunication. I don't remember if I talked about it with Bill Blowers on our recording,
And he
but
was the guy that was coming up, wasn't he?
yeah, we talked on the phone, and it was a miscommunication. And then later, my training sergeant came and visited me about the same thing after it had been resolved. So that's typical government, but it's okay.
Was that
I was
Sprague? Was that Sprague?
no Durham.
Oh, Bull? Really?
Yeah. Came
Yeah,
to
good
talk
guy.
to me, pulled me aside at lunch. But if there was one thing that was going to have me acting more right and more correct than I already felt like I was, then it was a visit to academy,
Oh,
right? Like
100%.
I try to
100%.
visit my people now, but it's always like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like just sitting with you at lunch. All right. Yeah, man, that means a lot. I remember intentionally like coming to you at graduation, asking you for like your nugget of advice. I was like, what advice would you impart upon me? And I was kind of like nervous about it. I really like to put you on a pedestal. I was like, man, what's he going to give me? Or is he what? I don't know. I didn't know if it would be like person specific, but I remember probably like 95% confidence with verbatim is you just looked at me like just deadpan, straight face, furrowed brow, and you said, run silent, run deep. And then you did about face and you just like walked away. And I was like,
you're stupid, dude.
Oh, like run silent and run deep. And I just like stood there, and I think my mom was off to the side, and I was like, what does that even mean? And so 16 years later, I bring it to you like, did I interpret it right? And I was like, well, he's saying like, stay hungry, stay humble, something to that effect. Okay, that works for me.
I don't remember saying it.
I figured you wouldn't. It's like so profound. You're probably like, I wonder if in the moment you're just like, I'm just gonna make something up. He's gonna eat it up, and like, you're trying to walk away so I wouldn't see you smirking. I think that if there's a camera that we could look at right now, that's probably what it'd show.
That's hilarious, bro.
I built my whole life around that. My whole career. But it worked, I think. I think I'm doing all right. So.
Oh, Lord, that's hilarious, man. That's hilarious. I probably have said some shit like that, though. Don't get it twisted. I probably have. But yeah, you guys were like, again, folklore about your guys' class. I mean, it's folklore. Yep.
We were goofy.
Yeah, you remember?
Island of Misfit Toys.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like to think
100%. Yeah. You remember Hicks, right?
Yeah.
You remember him, Rankin, Arnold, all talked about you guys. Talk to this day. They still talk about that class.
Yeah, it's one of a kind.
100%.
Yeah, when you're segregated off on this island, and I felt like we missed out a lot, but I'm sure there's a lot of benefits too. Like not interacting with other classes, but it kind of just, I think sometimes you're kind of forgotten about up there.
You were. Oh, you were. 100%.
But no, it was good. I wouldn't change anything.
Good stuff.
Well, thanks, Ken. Appreciate it. And I got to see how your next chapter's going.
For sure. 100%. Have me back on. I'll be glad to talk about it.
Sounds good, man. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.